the Lamborghini Aventador LP750-4 Super Veloce. If you think that name is excessive, just wait till you hear the numbers. 6.5 liters, 12 cylinders, natural aspiration, 740 horsepower, 690 Nm of torque, 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, 4-wheel drive and a Nürburgring lap time of 6:59. With the Aventador now entering final stages of its production, whether this is going to be the last mid-engine in a V12 Lamborghini supercar, we just can't say yet. What we can say, however, is how this car performs around the Imola. So let's find out.
Hi there, my name is Neil and welcome to my channel. Today is day 3 of the week, and as you know, this week we are at the Imola, which is in Italy, and it would be a crime to not have a go at it in an Italian car, isn't it? So today we are in the Lamborghini Aventador LP750-4 SV. First I'm going to have this 5-lap race with 7 of the other SVs here to try and find out what a fast competitive lap time in this car at this track is. Then we get to hot lapping, trying to chase down the fastest lap times that we have seen from the race and try to get somewhat consistent at it. Then we get to the breakdown, where we deep dive into the fastest lap that we get from the hot lapping session and break down every technical details like every braking point, turn in, exit, that sort of stuff. As of now, join you at the end of the race. So the race is done and the fastest time was done by the 4th car here, which is a 153.340. My fastest time was a 153.545, which isn't too shabby. It's actually the 2nd fastest time in the field. Now, all my other times were also in the 153s except for the last one. You see how that's quite a bit far off from my 153.5? That's because I came past the leading car taking first place in the last lap. In fact, I did it in turns 17 and 18. Considering the turn 19 is a flat out section, that's really the last corner of the lap. Despite that, it gives us a delta of around 0.8 of a second. Really not that much. You can't say the same about the other cars. I mean, look at the fastest lap times. The record time was a 153.34. The slowest lap was done by car number 7, a 155.145. That was its fastest time. Let's just leave that time alone. Our delta here is a low 153 to, let's say, a mid 154s, which is quite doable. Despite being pretty consistent around the laps, this is not a very predictable car in each sector. Now, even though I got purple sectors in sector 2 and sector 3 and just missed out on sector 1 by 0.1 of a second, look at the other times here. Just look at them. This is a pretty wide gap for just a 30, 48, 50 second sector. Let's keep that in mind and get to hot lapping. Now before we start, let me give you a tour of the setup. We are leaving everything in its default settings. So the tires, we are going with a hypercar road. There is also a hypercar trofeo option which will be faster, but our benchmark times are set on the default setup, the hypercar road, so that's what we are going with. We will leave every other mechanical bits untouched as well. So the aero, the rear wing is adjustable here. The default setting is 2, alignment, brake power, that sort of stuff. We are all going to leave that in its default settings. Apart from the electronics, which is not a mechanical setting, so why not tinker with that? We're going to leave the ABS on, and since this is a 4-wheel drive car, we are going to go with the traction control off. Alright, let's go for a drive. Now here we go, starting our lap here, and just listen to that engine, man. I mean, come on. Very soon we're going to live in a world without a naturally aspirated V12 engine. I don't want to live in that world. Now this, despite losing 50 kilos over the standard Aventador coupe, is still around 1.5 tons, slightly over 1.5 tons. So this can really use a bit of heat in its tires before we go all out. So let's just talk about the car in the meanwhile. So the Aventador came out in 2011, and with updates over the year, this is still in production. Yes, this more than a decade old Lamborghini is still in production. Now this was the 5th V12 Lamborghini in over 5 decades. The first being the Miura, which was the only rear-wheel drive V12 Lamborghini, succeeded by the Countach, then came the Diablo, followed by the Murcielago, which was succeeded by the Lamborghini Aventador in 2011. Now at the launch, the Aventador got a 690 horsepower 6.5 liter NA V12, which was Lamborghini's first all-new V12 in like 50 years. The SV came out in 2015 and was in production until 2017, with 600 of SV coupes being produced, followed by 500 SV roadsters. Power got a sizable jump by 50 horsepower, raising it to 740 horsepower and 690 Newton meters of torque. Now power wasn't the only upgrade Lamborghini made to the Aventador. The original Aventador, despite being quite capable, was never a brilliant handling car. The steering and suspension geometry they used made it quite an intimidating car really to drive at the limit. The SV, besides the extra horsepower, also got dynamic steering and magnetorheological dampers. It hurts my tongue just by saying that. It also got some aero upgrades, namely a front splitter, a rear diffuser, and that giant rear wing. All these upgrades gave the SV a stunning statistics to brag about: a 6 minute 59 seconds Nürburgring lap time, which was just a couple of seconds off the also quite new back then 900 horsepower Porsche 918. And you know what? This car did the 659 after just 4 attempts, after which the officials of Volkswagen, which owns both Lamborghini and Porsche, said no more attempts because they didn't want to embarrass the 918. What a feat. Now throughout its history, the SV has always been the top of the line V12 Lamborghini. And that was exactly what this car was meant to be. Not the case here though, as since its launch, we have then got the Aventador S, which replaced the mainstream Aventador Coupe, followed by the more track-focused version, the SVJ, and now, with a heavy heart, I have to let you know that recently we have got what is probably the final iteration of the Aventador, the LP780-4 Ultimate. Now here's a bit of a history lesson. All the other V12 Lamborghinis, this car's predecessors, they all had a production run of around a decade, some even longer. All those cars were immediately incredibly remarkable at the launch, and then Lamborghini refused to properly update them, and all the competitors that every V12 Lamborghini has ever had at the launch usually moves on with their lives, gets a job, gets married, has kids, settles down, while the Lamborghinis keeps on messing around with their backlog papers back in college. With the Aventador though, things are a little bit more complicated. I mean, when this car came out, Ferrari had the 458, which didn't really compete with the Aventador. It was a class lower. That car, the 458, evolved to now being the F8 Tributo, which has over 700 horsepower and can decimate any Lamborghini on the straight line. But get this, the last track-bred Aventador we got, the SVJ, took the Nürburgring lap record at a 6 minute 44 seconds, which is an insane achievement for a heavy 4-wheel drive V12 Lamborghini supercar. And truth to be told, had it not been for this car and its suspension and steering geometry upgrades, the Aventador would have been another V12 Lamborghini, extremely competitive at its launch, followed by getting 10 years older within 2 years. Now you really do feel the weight of this car. I mean, the V12 engine gives it pretty incredible straight line speed, but the weight means it doesn't brake that well. So it's a pretty big mismatch, the straight line speed and the braking performance. I promise you I'm not taking a shit right now, I'm just braking. Phew. Alright, we are done with our session here, and our fastest lap time is a 153.533. Slightly faster than my fastest time from the race, slightly slower than our target time here, which was a 153.340. Now leave the lap 10 alone. Actually, I braked way too late for turn 17 and went straight into the gravel trap, so yeah. Apart from that and the first two laps, the other laps give us a delta of around 1.6 seconds. 1.9 second if you consider the last lap as well, which is pretty respectable given how unpredictable this car behaves around corners. You come to a corner in this car, you do the exact same thing, you give the car the exact same inputs, and it's going to behave differently. I do not know how it manages to do that, but it does. Anyway, with that said, the fastest lap time once again is a 153.533, and here is the breakdown.
Joining you on the start-finish straight and across the line to start the lap, flat out through turn 1. Coming up is turn 2, 3 and 4. Brake hard at the 250 meter marker on the right side. Hold your brakes and gently release as you enter the corner. Look for the mid-corner apex and get back on throttle, modulating it around turn 3 and turn 4. Floor the throttle at the exit of turn 4. Coming up is turn 5 and 6. Brake at the 100 meter marker on the right. Release brakes as you enter turn 5. Get back on throttle for a little while and brake again for turn 6. Look for a mid-corner apex and get back on throttle, gently accelerating out towards turn 7. Brake hard at the 50 meter marker. Release as you enter the corner, look for a late apex and gently roll onto the throttle. Flat out through turn 8, coming up is turn 9. On the 100 meter marker on the right side, hit your brakes hard, release at the entry and let the car roll for a little bit before you get back on throttle. Going flat out through turn 10, coming up is turn 11, 12 and 13. Brake at the 100 meter marker on the left, release at the entry, get back on throttle and brake again for turn 12. Look for mid-corner apex, get back on throttle on the apex and gently accelerate out, flat out through turn 13. Coming up is turn 14 and 15, the chicane. Again, brake at the 100 meter marker on the left, release brakes at the entry, use both the inner curbs and gently accelerate out. Next up is turn 16 and 17, keep your car on the left for this one. Make sure you do all your turning into turn 16 before you hit the 150 meter marker on the right, where you brake hard for turn 17. Hold brakes and release at the entry, use up all the inner and the outer curbs as you accelerate, dab off brakes at the entry of turn 18, look for a late apex and accelerate out. From there, flat out through turn 19 as this NA V12 Italian Raging Bull takes you past the start-finish line in a 153.533.
So that's a wrap for today. Let me know your thoughts about this video down in the comment box below. Also, if you have a favorite car or track that you want to be featured in this channel, comment them down and I shall try to do that. While you're down there, hit your favorite buttons, the like, share, subscribe and the bell notification icon, and I'll see you in my next video. Until then, drive hard, drive safe. Take care.